Gaze reading where the greats drop by. Trendy authors tell us all the who, what, and why. Anyone can listen, cause we're spoiler free. Gaze reading, from Pulitzer stars to book club picks, where the curious minds can get their fix. So you say you're not gay, well that's okay. There's something for everyone. Gaze reading.
Hello, and welcome to Gaze Reading. I'm your host, Jason Blitman, and on today's episode, I have Jemimah Wei talking to me about her book, The Original Daughter, and my guest gay reader, Prabal Gurung, who is known worldwide for being an incredible fashion designer. He talks to me about what he's reading and a little bit about his memoir, Walk Like a Girl. Prabal and I talked for so long that I couldn't even fit a fraction of our conversation in this episode. And so much of our conversation can be found over on the Gaze Reading Substack. So make sure to check that out. The link is in the show notes and on the link tree on Instagram. Both Jemimah and Prabal's bios are in the show notes. The Original Daughter is the current Good Morning America book club pick, and also it is an Aardvark book club pick. And of course, I'm partnering with Aardvark Book Club to offer an introductory discount where you can get your first book for $4 and free shipping. So go on over to aardvarkbookclub.com, use the code GAZEREADING at checkout, and you can get your own copy of The Original Daughter for only $4. Such a good deal. We're on Instagram at Gaze Reading. You could watch this conversation over on YouTube. You could watch the conversation that I just had with Rosie O'Donnell over on YouTube. Y'all, I'm still kvelling about the fact that I had Rosie O'Donnell on Gaze Reading, and not everyone realized that the episode was on YouTube. So you can watch her and I over there. It was just so much fun, and I'm still so thrilled. Both Rosie O'Donnell and Frederick Backman in the same week on Gaze Reading. So incredibly special. And if you haven't yet listened, make sure to check those episodes out. And as always, if you like what you're hearing, please share us with your friends. And if you are so inclined, leave a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. As I say all the time, this is a little indie podcast, and any feedback that we can get from listeners and things like stars and subscriptions, etc., really helps the algorithm and helps other people find Gaze Reading as well. This past week, I was in conversation with the actor turned author Lily Taylor about her book, Turning to Birds. And that conversation was recorded and will be over on our Substack as well. So make sure to check that out. And those are all the things. Now, please enjoy this episode of Gaze Reading featuring Jemimah Wei and Prabal Gurung. My interview this morning, we spent so much time talking about treadmill desks.
Wait, I feel like those are becoming really popular. I was at my friend's house, Gina Chung. Her novel Sea Change came out a couple of years ago, and Green Frog, the story collection, came out last year. And she has one of those. And then I was talking to Frances Cha, another novelist, who also got one of those walking desks. And I was like, I have to get on this, I feel like.
Yes. So you have to start the trend. You have to get on the wave at the beginning of it.
Yeah, except I don't want to exercise. So then that's like a real problem.
Apparently it moves so slowly that it's okay.
Oh, do you have one?
No, but after this conversation this morning, I want one.
Oh, really? Okay.
But apparently, so this is what I learned. She has to put her Fitbit in her sock because if you're typing, the Fitbit doesn't track the steps. And so it's not worth doing if you're not getting the tracks. So that if you end up doing it, that's important to know.
I mean, it is worth doing it because you still get the exercise. But
no.
I don't know. I feel like I only like to sweat on schedule. So I don't want to be thinking and sweating. I don't know.
Say more. What do you mean?
Look, I come from Singapore, right? We're off the equator. I sweat all the time growing up. I didn't leave my country to sweat some more. So in America, when the weather gets hot, I'm just like, what is this? I didn't come here for this.
Very fair.
I don't want to sweat. If I want to sweat, it has to be for like from 8 to 9 p.m. in the gym where I signed up to sweat. Not like atmospheric sweating. I don't want to do that. I don't sticky.
You're an intentional sweater.
I am. So I like the idea of being active and exercising, sweating. So I don't know.
Do you sweat when you get nervous? Are there like other times that you sweat? No, it's just like only when you're warm.
Yeah, no, but the problem is I'm one of those people whose body temperature runs a bit hot, which
Yeah,
is
me too.
like really bad for someone who grew up on the equator.
Yeah.
And I'm allergic to my own sweat, which is something a dermatologist told me when I was like in my 20s. So yeah,
How is
right?
that possible?
Yeah. So like I have a low level allergy to my own sweat, which means that if I sweat too much, I get like crazy heat rash. And when I was growing up, I thought that was just normal. This derm was like, no, this is like a reaction to your sweat. So if you sweat, you have to wipe it off immediately so it doesn't sit on your skin because you actually are a little bit allergic to your own sweat. And I was like, this is terrible for me personally, really bad news because I live in the equator in a tropical country.
Yes.
It's not good.
Sorry, family. I have to move.
I know, crazy.
I grew up in Florida.
Oh no,
and
swampy.
And so I have a similar feeling whenever I'm in humidity. I'm like, no, 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 no. I left Florida. I should not be in humidity right now.
Yeah. It's just so
Yeah.
much to us that we have our personal atmosphere follow us around, just like temperature control. And
Jemimah, how do we make this happen?
listen, I'm sure some R&D person in Singapore is on it.
Oh, interesting. I know. I have so many. I would like to submit my feedback.
Okay.
Send me their info. I
Okay.
will send my opinions.
We send a ticket and we hear back in 3 to 5 working days.
Perfect. You understand. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. See? You never know what you're going to talk about at the beginning of a podcast.
Oh, I know. You started a podcast, people log on and they're like, oh, we think we're going to listen to people talking about a book today. And then they're like, what's this sweaty conversation?
Books are boring. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, no.
No, I'm obsessed that you have this like YouTuber history.
Uh-huh.
Is that, we'll get into that and how it relates to the book in a minute, but can you share how that even came to be for you?
Sure. So basically, I was born and raised in Singapore. And back in the day, we were like flirting with the internet. And it wasn't this like all-encompassing thing that it is today, so much part of our
Yeah.
lives. Back then, it was like, if my mom is on the phone with a friend, I can't use the internet. It's a pop-up on the line. It really didn't feel like such a green thing. And
Yeah.
so when I was about, I think I was 20, maybe 19 or 20, I was scouted and I did a reality show. Back then, YouTube wasn't even that big. So it wasn't even on YouTube. It was on this like online TV network, this own TV channel. And so I did that for several years and I just continued because I had a lot of fun. It was really good, like, experience. It was just so unusual as a part-time job. I was in college, right? And everybody
Yeah.
around me was like doing part-time jobs, like working at Topshop or giving tuition or giving piano lessons. And this one was like, oh, we'll pay you to show up once a week and just talk about fashion. I was like, I'll do that. That seems way more fun. And I had a great experience. Like, I was got by a woman. Like, I worked with a lot of very strong women. I was taken under wing almost immediately of some mentors in the industry who were in like traditional TV media. And so I felt like even though it was definitely challenging and a learning curve, I was very like shepherded and mentored. And I think it made such a huge difference for me. And it was only like sometime into doing that where my producer was like, you have to get on social media more intentionally because everybody is looking for connection, different ways to connect. So they watch you on screen, they want to find other ways to connect with you.
Yeah.
So at a point, I think I didn't even use an iPhone. So do you remember when Instagram didn't have an Android app? That's how old I am.
I don't because I always had an iPhone.
Oh,
I mean, I've never had an Android, so it doesn't matter. I remember when Instagram started,
yeah, it was like pure a BlackBerry girly. So I had a BlackBerry and she was like, you need to get Instagram. And I was like, can't do it, babes. Like, I don't got an iPhone. And so I got an iPad like from work. So I was working also at an advertising agency at the time. I was a copywriter and they were like, here's an iPad to help with your work. And I was like, cool, I downloaded Instagram. Imagine me like some like old person having this massive iPad that I would then be like, oh, I need to upload something to Instagram. Then I would email myself from my phone, download the photo on my iPad and be like, this is what I had for lunch. This is
what I had for lunch. It was delicious. Go to this restaurant.
Great. Yeah. All myself at the dentist. Like with my iPad, which had no internet connection, so I had to get Wi-Fi. And it was like crazy times. And so
excuse me, dentist, your mouth is full. What's your Wi-Fi password?
Literally. And then so it was like, it was so insane, but it felt fun. It felt like a good time. I don't know if it still feels like a good time. The internet feels greater right now. But back
Yeah, it
then,
does. It's like
yeah,
yeah.
back then though, it was really fun.
We
It
need like
felt,
caution tape around the internet right now.
I think so.
Yeah.
I do feel like I watched the way, because I have two younger sisters, I watched the way they grow up differently with entering the internet at different points. I do think it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
But so anyway, back to it. So I was doing that, and then I started doing other. One thing leads to another. I did like that show for a while. I did another show. I did that. Those were my long form shows. I did documentaries. I did like travel shows with traditional networks. So I did all this stuff like that. And a big part of that in the media is then you get brand endorsements. So I also did content creation. I have friends who are full-time content creators, and they work so hard. They have like intense mood boards. They pitch like crazy. They have brand decks. And I was just vibing out. I was like, I got a show. I'm on a show. And then I was like, listen, I'm not a photographer. I'm interested in it, but I'm not like a video. I don't have the skills to make like a beautiful brand video. So if you want something shot on my like Android, like a selfie, like, hey guys, like I can totally do that.
Right.
So it was
Send
like
me a hotspot.
totally. And then later, my sister gave me an iPhone. She was like, girl. So that was really nice. After that, it was just one thing leading to another. I do think that, then after that, like YouTube became really big. So then the network transitioned. So a lot of my later like media like shows ended up being hosted on YouTube. But I think that I was really lucky. I had to learn all those like site skills separately, because I was first and foremost hired as a presenter. So my job was just to show up and which was great.
Right.
I didn't have to do any of the heavy lifting. I didn't do editing. I didn't do like script writing for the show. I didn't direct or anything. So I just showed up and talked.
What I'm hearing you say is that like what you're doing right now. You're happy to be here right now because you have nothing else to do but just be yourself and chat.
Exactly. And I have so much respect and admiration and gratitude for the people who edit it later and go to the sound mixing and everything. I later did a bit of producing and a bit of script writing. So I did develop those skills separately. But I'm definitely...
When you came on board, you were on board to be a personality. Yeah.
And it was fun.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Then I did a hard pivot when I moved to the States to pursue writing full time.
Yeah.
And that was, it's crazy to think about it. That was in 2019. So it's been like 6 years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have the book here, The Original Daughter. I'm so excited. The concept of becoming a YouTuber is, I don't want to say a major plot point. I guess it's a major plot point. It is a big moment in the book. But before we get ahead of ourselves, do you have an elevator pitch for the book or your like one-liner that you say your book is about?
Sure. Okay, so my name is Jemimah Wei, and I'm the author of The Original Daughter, which is coming out with Doubleday Books. It's about two sisters growing up in Singapore, one adopted, and they are navigating the turn of the millennium, the rapid progression, the fact that Singapore is ultra competitive, super stressful, and rapidly modernizing, and also trying to navigate their relationship to independence and intimacy on their journey towards fame and fortune.
Obsessed. You are succinct. You've already said you have two younger sisters.
Mm-hmm.
What was that process like writing this book? That's really at its core, it's a sister book. It's a book about sisters. I have two younger sisters as well. And so I read it thinking about, what if these were my sisters?
So it's interesting because obviously it is about sisters, but I wasn't thinking so much about sisters as my entry point to the book as I was about the idea of family being given away and taken in. Because those silences, that is extremely common in the generation where I grew up and my parents grew up, and even before that in Singapore and our region, it's super, super common for kids to be given away or adopted for all kinds of reasons. Like families are too big, they can't support all their kids. And people don't like to talk about it, obviously. So established, I am a big yapper, love to yap. And as a yapper, when you come up against big silences in life, you're like, what is the silence? And so I became really aware of those silences around those choices at a really young age. And I think as a kid, maybe this was my first fiction exercise, I would just like invent into those silences. And so I think that was like one way of thinking about the book, of entering the book. What would it be like to have that relationship where somebody entered into your family or your family reconfigured itself in a way that's not like super conventional and that people don't talk about very much? What would it mean to be a secret? What would it mean to be like the only child and then have to accommodate and love another sister that's brought into your life at a young age, like it's 7 or 8. That's the age where each of them are when this happens. And what do the silences born of care open up for us and fracture for us? So that's the questions I was really thinking about. And that is not the relationship I had with my sisters. Like I watched them come out of my mom. Okay. Like I was at a hospital being like, Mom, hurry up.
Oh, that's just aggressive.
Oh, I know. And so
That's a different kind of trauma.
it's a different, yeah, exactly.
Watching them come out.
Not literally watching house, like in the waiting room. But so this is not the relationship I have with my sisters.
Sure.
And so I didn't think about that so much. But then obviously everybody says this is a book about sisters, and it is. It's totally a book about sisters. But to me, it's also a book about chosen family and how do we keep choosing them or not.
Yeah.
And
What's so interesting is that you said that it's non-traditional, and it's so fascinating because it's disguised as traditional. So it's easy, quote unquote, easy to pretend, to lean into what a reality is to the outside world, right? So it's a secret to everyone else, but internally, there's nothing normal about it.
yeah, and the thing is, I do believe that chosen family is as valuable and as legitimate as biological family. And I think that in this specific family that I've written, their attempts to pretend, not to pretend, but to keep insisting and reassuring the adopted daughter that it's true, does create an isolating experience. I think the silences around it, to be like, these are both my daughters, this is my sister, that is both reassuring and also not 100% exactly what the reality is. And so
Right.
then this child is left to figure out on her own what this identity means to her, what this relationship means to her. And she knows that it's not malicious, right? She knows that her family loves her. It's just the fact that you never ever talk about the fact
reality.
that the reality of it,
Yeah.
I think can. And I've seen that happen so many times in my interpersonal relationships, in my extended family. I do think we should call it's, I think there is no such thing as over communication. And so it does create fractures down the road if you have silences around things that normalize or pretend that they don't exist.
Yeah. It's so interesting because my therapist has been out of town for a few weeks, and so I'm processing things a lot for myself right now. I'm using my coping skills, but I haven't talked to my dad in 5 years, and there's some other tensions within my family and me, and so much of it I'm realizing right now, if I were to dig to the root of why, it is because of silences.
Mm.
It is because of things that we're not talking about, that we're not addressing, or that we're ignoring. And I'm over here as a yapper being like, excuse me, what the hell? Why aren't we talking about this thing? And because no one's willing to meet me there, that's where the estrangement is coming from.
Yeah,
It's very
I
interesting.
definitely see that. I hear you on that. And I think that the thing is, if you're not habituated to communicating and talking, it will always be difficult at the start. You're always going to have friction and bump up against each other. But I think that's part of the growing pains of pushing past that and entering a new
Yes.
stage of your relationship. You're so like accustomed to being afraid of pain. And so we don't want to take that, we don't want to enter that zone of discomfort, maybe. Yeah.
It's interesting just talking about moving beyond the pain. There's at the beginning of the book, you talk about liberation. What is, unrelated to the book, what does that mean to you? What does feeling liberated mean to you?
So my answer to that keeps changing. I will say that I was really obsessed with the idea of liberation and freedom while writing the book.
Interesting.
And processing a lot of what that means to me, because I think that it's tossed around a lot as a catch-all phrase, right? You can't talk about liberation and freedom without talking about the very real costs that come with it. So for me, I feel like I have developed like this great ambition for love in my like 20s and 30s. And what that looks like to different people is different. And so for me, I orient my life around those relationships, around that kind of guiding principle. And it looks quite different from what I thought my life would look. And so for me, I think right now, being able to like fully interrogate my life circumstances and why I make the choices I make and take those steps intentionally is a kind of freedom for me. It's a way of reclaiming time. Because I think that when you live in a hyper-capitalist, hyper-cosmopolitan society, life moves too fast. You can get swept up in the way circumstances carry us forward. We're just trying to survive and not really interrogating our lives. And then we're going to wake up one day and be like, oh, there goes the last 5-10 years. And the one thing you can't go is back. That's what it does. And it's really important for me to be like, this is why I'm doing this right now. These are the choices I'm making. And if things go well, great. If things don't go well, it's also a choice I make. I think to be able to take agency and responsibility and accountability for my life is a kind of freedom, because time and owning my life. Whereas I don't want to be carried along by the currents of society. Who knows where that's going to go? Yeah.
Right. If the last few months have been any indication, we don't want to hop on that train. That's a really special answer. I like that so much. And hearing you say that, the book is so much about time and is so much about not going back and about what's to come. Totally pivoting. What is your relationship with McDonald's?
Gosh, don't know what to tell you. I really love a chicken nugget. I don't have a sweet tooth at all. So I'm a savory kind of person. And this was a real shock to me in America. Everybody eats cookies. And I was like, at first I was like, why are people eating so many cookies? And I realized that's because if you want a snack, that's the like snack shaped thing, a cookie. But in Asia, you could be like, I want a snack and then eat a nugget. It's not just McDonald's. There are all these other snack stands, Old Chang Kee, which is a really popular like chain in Singapore, where you could get like fish balls on a stick or a fish nugget or a chicken nugget or a curry puff. So like a snack shaped thing I love that. I just want to eat a piece of meat. I don't want to eat a cookie.
What about a potato chip?
That's okay. When you eat too many potato chips, you get really thirsty because it's so
not
salty.
Hearty enough for you?
Yeah, I want to like eat a piece of meat. I don't know what to tell you. And okay,
you've said that now 2 times in the same way, and I appreciate the heft behind that phrase. I want to eat a piece of meat. Like that's right. I love it.
And I say that as somebody who was pescatarian for 2 full years, and I was like, I have to go back to this.
Wait a minute. Hold on. I need to know more. You're a pescatarian. Are you no longer pescatarian? Okay. I was gonna say if you're a pescatarian but you only make an exception for chicken nuggets from McDonald's, I would have been obsessed with that. Okay, but so once upon a time you were a pescatarian, but now
once upon a time, then it got too expensive to be a pescatarian because fish is really expensive.
Yes,
it's too expensive.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it was a reason to go back.
We've all been there. I feel you.
But
so so that's how your relationship with McDonald's began.
No, it's not just that. It's also so growing up, like my family, like, you're from pretty spare circumstances. So I never ever got to eat McDonald's. It was a luxury. So on my birthday, my dad would take me to McDonald's. And so literally every year I would just look forward to eating at McDonald's for my birthday. And we would just it would be like our catch up time. We would just chit chat about whatever we wanted to talk about. And McDonald's in Singapore had 2 big menu items. You could eat the hotcakes or you could eat the burger. So every year I would think to myself, all year I'll be thinking, should I get hotcakes this year or the burger this year? I had the hotcakes last year, so maybe this year I'll have the burger. And when I started getting pocket money and being able to go to McDonald's and buy a fish burger on my own, there was this whole thing where I could not get it because it was too expensive. Like, my parents would have to buy it for me on my birthday once a year.
Right.
And then so to finally be able to eat my McDonald's meal, I was like, what is this, like, true luxury to eat a fish burger by myself? Like, whenever I want. Like, it was crazy. And so in Singapore, a lot of McDonald's are 24 hours.
Yeah.
And our relationship to fast food chains, not just McDonald's, is, as you've read the book, you'll know that we have a really intense educational culture. And so people study all the time. And so you would go to McDonald's and sit there with a student meal and sit there for 6 hours doing your mathematics homework or your English homework. And so it's very common to be like, hey, do you want to go to McDonald's and study? Growing up, I'd say it would be one of the more affordable options, because you think about a whole meal from McDonald's, they also had student meals. So it'll be $5 for a burger, drink, and fry.
Wow.
And that's less than the cost of a Starbucks coffee. So if you had money, you would go to Starbucks to study. If you had no money, you would go to the library or McDonald's and hang out with your friends and do your homework together. And so that was really the relationship I had with it growing up. It felt really fun and special. Yeah. Obviously, globalization, you can feel our relationship to that has changed. It was a real sentimental and nostalgic place to return to.
It's so funny because McDonald's comes up a couple times in the book, obviously, is why I'm asking about it. And I don't know why, but I didn't expect this rich history for you with McDonald's. Thank you for sharing all of that. I love that so much.
Oh, welcome. Yeah, I definitely wanted to deliberately write into the book things that
Yeah.
meant a lot to Singaporeans growing up in that specific period.
Can you describe to me the 3 ways of eating a fry?
So you can like, I just like the normal way, like just num num num, like eating a
Right.
French fry, or you could bite the top and bite the end and just suck out the potato in the middle,
I
or
need to
you
try
could
this because
you have to
I don't believe that works. But you
oh
clearly tried it.
go for it. It becomes very soggy by the end, but
Is it just
and
a McDonald's fry, or can any fry be eaten that way?
I think any fry can be eaten that way. It's just
Okay.
that as a kid, you have one tiny box of fries. You're really trying to draw it out for as long as possible. Because the
So
moment when
true.
the moment when the box of fries end is like such a small. It's like such a great tragedy for a small child. You're like, oh no,
Yeah.
it's over. And so you're
Yeah.
really trying to prolong this experience of eating a French fry. And the last way to eat a French fry is to bite the top at the end and then just like nibble the skin, the joining skin, and then just eat the skin.
Oh my God. To be a
Dude,
fly on the wall while you were learning how to do all this, that's so funny.
dude, listen,
What
that's not even the craziest thing. I have friends who like invented all kinds of secret menu items for McDonald's.
invented secret menu items?
Yeah, they
They
would
need
just
to
like
be
buy a bunch
sponsoring
of
this
stuff.
episode.
Oh, I know.
Buy a bunch of stuff and like put it all together.
hmm
Oh, fascinating. What an interesting idea. Okay. Okay. This is the second episode where I have a very long conversation about French fries. What is the thing in your life now that you are drawing out in that way? When you were a kid, you didn't want the box of fries to end, but what is that thing now?
I think maybe currently, as we're recording this podcast, it's 2 weeks before my book comes out. And I'm really trying to live in the moment. I think our conversation has naturally revolved around this idea of time. And one thing that I really want to be able to do is be like, this is the time I'm living in and know exactly what I'm going through when I'm going through it. People keep asking me, are you excited about a book coming out? Are you dreading it? And I don't feel either way. I don't feel like it should come out faster or it should come out later. I just feel like I'm going to meet it when it comes out. It's just whenever it happens, it happens. That's not accidental. I had to very deliberately cultivate this relationship with time because you grew up in a very competitive, very achievement-oriented society. You're always looking for the next thing. I don't necessarily feel like I want to live that way anymore because I don't want to wake up 10 years from now and be like, those were the good times and my life were the precious times. There's a Natalia Ginsburg essay on this where she talks about, I think it's called Winter in a Bruiser or something. And she talks about how these like torturous times that she had with her family were actually the most precious times of her life in hindsight because of everything that happens to the family after that. And that always stayed with me because I don't want to live looking backwards all the time. I don't want to live looking forwards either. I want to live with all three tenses. And I think that's interesting. I was at a Stegner right before this. I was in California for 2 years, and being at a Stegner is its own magical thing. And a lot of it was sitting around people's backyards, eating their fruit, which is amazing. Like you can just do that in California, and talking about writing and about what writers are concerned with. And one question one of the Stegners asked me was, which two tenses do you live in? Because all writers can only live in two, the past, the present, or the future. And I thought about that a lot, like moving forward. And the way people respond to that also was very interesting. So I think just to answer your question, I'm obviously very long-winded. Like I do want to draw out this feeling that I have right now. So maybe not the time I have right now, but the feeling I have of feeling really aware of my life, where it's at the contours of my life, like the gratitude for having finished the book, which took so long. Like God bless, honestly, like off in the world she goes, bye. And the feeling of freedom and excitement that is that the book has allowed me or gifted me this new relationship to my art where I can now move in a different direction. I can now explore different questions in different forms. And this feeling is of being like fully in my physical body and experiencing time this way, it's really magical because for so much of the process of writing a book and trying to get it published, your writers are neurotic, right? I'm neurotic. I was so anxious all the time. I did not enjoy being anxious. I don't want to be anxious if I can help it. So I try and draw out for as long as I can of feeling like really at home in my time and space.
I love that. It's so funny that we were talking about how once upon a time you were a pescatarian because there was a summer that I was a pescatarian as a challenge for myself. I was curious, could I do it for the summer? And when the summer was over, I appreciated how present it made me feel, having to
Mhm.
think about my meals and just the way I was living, that I just kept extending it, my
Mhm.
my arbitrary deadline, because I wanted to continue living in the present moment in that way.
Wait, so are you still a pescatarian now?
No, it
Oh,
didn't.
okay. I would have been so impressed. It's like, because
No,
it's hard. It's really hard.
but I
Yeah.
appreciated the sort of discipline
Yeah.
that it gave me. But no, I was thinking that I imagine a lot of people these days think about television and binging television in that way, right? Like they want to save an episode, so they wait as long as they can before they watch the next episode of something, because we don't want that box of fries to end.
It's interesting you brought up television. I had to think about it a couple of years ago because I didn't grow up with a television. Just putting that out there. Like I didn't really watch TV growing up. It was a slightly later in life thing for me. And so even though I did have a bit of that experience of watching a TV on air and then running to the bathroom during the commercial break and running back, very much like of my like the majority of like when I was seriously looking at television was when streaming had come into play. And so I didn't have that experience for a lot of it. And then during the pandemic, Marvel released WandaVision. Did you watch that?
I did.
Yeah. I loved WandaVision, and I was shocked that it was a weekly release format because I watched 2 episodes. I was like, oh, I'm here for this. And then it's okay, see you next week. And I was just in shock. I was like, what do you mean see you next week? See you now.
I want instant gratification.
Now. No, but that was so interesting. I was like, oh, it's so true. The release of streaming and just like technologies that are designed around trying to feed what we want to give us instant gratification or like our relationship to gratification. And it makes sense that those technologies are developed that way because they are consumerist technologies. They are doing what is the most profitable for them. But they're not like humanist technologies. Like that living in this world, it's easy to go on autopilot. It's easy to just let life carry along. Like when is the next job milestone? When is the next season? When is the next salary paycheck coming in? When is the next rent due? What can I do to meet that milestone? And so it's easy to just go years of your life like half asleep. And that's why I feel so strongly about thinking about trying to move away from that. I think it's
How do
valuable
you
for
get
me.
out of that?
I'm ironically trying to develop more of a TV habit. I don't have so much of that habit. So last year I was like, my goal this year is to watch one TV show to its end. And that's like a very intentional goal I set for myself.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to watch a TV series. And I did.
What did you pick?
I have a really big group of friends in Singapore. We hang out at each other's houses like every single weekend and sometimes more than that. So we watched Culinary Class Wars together. That was so fun. It's like this cooking television show. It's intense. It's so good. It's a Korean show. And now we really want to go eat all the food. And for the 8 weeks of watching it together, suddenly we were all chefs. We were like, oh, I'm going to slice my spring onions diagonally. I don't know. It's just like such a communal and social activity for me. I find it hard to sit down and watch by myself. And then we also watched Agatha All Along.
Which I have not watched yet, but I do really want to watch it.
Oh, you must. It's so good. I think it's potentially better than WandaVision because WandaVision is afflicted by the Marvel turn. Hi, we're a Marvel show. Whereas Agatha All Along is very clearly like a standalone thing.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it's accountable only to itself, which is nice.
So you were intentional about watching this TV show.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time with my friends and family. Like an immense amount of time either physically with them or talking to them or chatting with them on the phone. And that is not something I was always able to do because I was really an overachiever and I would work like 3-4 jobs at the same time. I started working, my first job was at the age of 14. I basically was always going for the next thing and working really hard. And I think a lot of that is just like, it means that you only have 24 hours in a day. I was absent for a lot of things. And I don't want to live that way. And then when you're writing a book, it becomes like writing is an isolated activity, right? You have to be solitary while doing it. Nobody else can enter the space that you're in mentally, even if they're in the same room. And so those two things for me, for the longest time, I have working on this book for such a long time, as it started reaching the like 5-year mark, 7-year mark, 8-year mark, it became quite clear that it was this thing that had accompanied me through so much of my writing life, attempting to finish this book. And I was like, I have to finish this book or I will simply die. But that is like a conflicting interest to wanting to spend as much quality time as possible with the people that I love. And so then I became those navigating that relationship between those two things became really important to me, because it's not, I don't just want to be a writer with a book out. Like I want to have a book out, but I also want to be I want the human being writer that I am, who had created this book, to also be the kind of person who is able to have those really valued relationships that are very important to me.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's really about being intentional.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. You've talked about your childhood a bit and just growing up and some of the things that happened. And there's something that comes up about the concept of the atmosphere of childhood. Do you remember the atmosphere of your childhood? Like, metaphorically?
Yeah, it was sweaty. And as we have established, I do not like to sweat.
Yeah.
And I think that was like one of the kind of like interesting craft challenges around writing this book, which is I want to create a book that is as true as possible to the lives of these characters. But I also want to create a book that reflects a reality that I love. And I don't like to sweat. But if you write a book with Singaporean characters, they're all sweaty. And so I really was like trying to not have them be so sweaty. So that was like one of it's like a really dumb thing. Like it's obviously not a very deep craft concern.
I don't think that's dumb at all. That I think is so fascinating, because for you to think about your childhood as being sweaty, but how intentionally you don't want all of your characters to just be sweaty all the time. That's so interesting.
Yeah, because, okay, so I'm a really like physical reader.
Yeah.
Like I will read a book set in the desert and I'll feel itchy. I don't like that feeling. And I don't want to have that feeling when I read my own book either. Because I'm really conscious, like the thing about writing a book is this is an insanely authoritative move. It's saying to another person, like a reader that I've never met before, just give me your attention, give me your time, and give me your entire brain space, and just enter my world. Just give up your world. Come into
so
mine.
Rude.
You know, and a lot of cross choices as you're designing a book and like revising it is to like keep the reader in that world for as long as possible.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking to myself, what is the priority of this scene, of this story arc, of this chapter? And it is not to make my reader uncomfortable or sweaty and be like, I'm sweaty now and I don't want to read this. It's like there are other things that I am more concerned with. And so how do I make this reading environment as hospitable to the reader as possible, want them there for the more uncomfortable moments? So you're thinking, really, you're weighing all those things, thinking like, how can I keep the reader engaged? Because you write a book for yourself and it's an isolated activity for the longest time. And then at some point you start thinking about, okay, I'm realizing this is going to become a real book. It's going to finish. I'm going to finish a draft. I'm probably going to send it out. And then so the relationship changes a little bit. It's not just for me anymore. It's like, how do I employ every narrative strategy I know to keep the reader from putting down the book? And part of what you were saying earlier about time, like this TV show, I don't want it to end. I'm saving the TV show. That is also the relationship that we have with our readers. When you hear readers talk about how much they love a book, it's quite rarely things like, oh, I love the turn of a phrase on chapter 5. It's usually things like, I couldn't stop reading it. I couldn't put it down. Or I finished it so fast. Or I just didn't want it to end. And so it is an emotional response to your relationship with time that you are like creating this environment for as a writer. And yeah, so all of that was definitely in the consideration as I was working on it. I want to create this atmosphere of the immersive sense of being a child again and reading a book, and being totally lost in a book. And that atmosphere of the early pages or the early chapters or the early sections of the book, part of that was I don't want to break the spell by feeling sweaty. Yeah.
It's also interesting because you said readers aren't necessarily saying to you, oh, I loved this turn of phrase, or I love this passage, or anything so nitty gritty. It's more big picture. There's a line about our dreams having to adjust to accommodate reality that as an idea broke my brain a little bit. I will just go against what you just said about not picking something very specific by picking something very specific, because it broke my brain. I don't often think about how our dreams need to be malleable, because dreams aren't real. And so we need to find the balance between dreams and reality. And the way your turn of phrase was something about our dreams have to adjust to accommodate reality.
Thank you so much for reading so carefully about picking that out. I love it when people do that, because it's such a testament, right, to how deeply you've read something that I've worked hard on. It's always very moving to me when that happens.
Do you agree with that sentiment about dreams adjusting to accommodate reality?
I do think that we live in an insane reality that is potentially the worst timeline. And so like we will break.
Yeah.
You know, I do think that the ability to be flexible or to adapt is like a soft skill that we don't talk about very much. It's something I thought about a lot about while writing this book, like this idea that we have all these dreams and we have this vision of reality, and our ability to assimilate new information and adapt instead of holding fast to what we want and then breaking when that doesn't happen is really important, and it's a slightly inherited skill. It is a privilege, like the mental flexibility and the mental like wellness that is needed to like withstand failure or disappointment. It's learned behavior. You learn it from watching people around you, from watching your parents or watching like role models around you, and those people tend to have access to a different kind of like life experience, maybe.
Sure.
And so I do think that when I watch people move through the education system, there is a dexterity, like a mental dexterity that I think is like an inherited privilege to some extent. And we talk a lot about the more visible inherited privileges, like the people you know, or the connections you have, or the financial background you have, and all those things are extremely important. But having the vocabulary to articulate the reality of the way the world works and know how to recalibrate yourself with new information, I think is also important.
The idea of persona comes up in the book. Does Jemimah have a persona? Or is Jemimah Wei a persona?
I don't know that anybody just has one persona. I think that we have multiples. We contain multitudes. We have multiple selves, and it's just which self is closer to the self we're putting forward at a point in time. I think to myself, I was thinking about this because somebody else also asked me something similar, which is about one versus another self. But I think I was just thinking about it more deeply because of that question. And I don't really believe in the binary of the authentic self and the performed self. I think there is a range. And I don't necessarily think that the performed self is a false self. I think it is probably the version of yourself you want to see out there. And then so you start thinking of yourself in society as a person with mirrors around you, which is, I think, basically what the internet is right now. It's like a giant mirror where you're constantly micro-adjusting your behavior and checking yourself even when no one else is there. You are like trying to move towards a version of yourself that you want people to believe in. I think the more important thing for me is being able to separate that relationship to your perceived self from the fact that empirically you are a self. Having that really healthy relationship with that is really important. Because perception doesn't change your empirical like eyes, nose, ears, personhood. And I think it's really important to see yourself as someone who is fully worthy of dignity and humanity, which is not something that you would think that it's like the bare minimum, but it's not really something that performance and audience is set up to encourage, really.
That's so interesting. And I recently had Katie Kitamura on the show talking about audition, and so much of the, I don't know if you've had a chance to read it yet, but so much of the book is about that, right? Like how we are constantly auditioning for a role in our own lives, and how our own persona on a daily basis can shift based on the costume we put on.
Yeah, but if you think about it, you know, what is one of the core desires of a person is to be seen for who you are and loved for who you are. And not loved like blindly, right? Not whatever you do, it's fine. It's to be seen for all your flaws and all your nasty icks. And to still be like, I accept you for who you are and I'm here with you through this time. And I do think that it's like directly conflicting with this sense of having to put up a persona all the time.
Right.
And this book that I wrote, that it's about so many things, but I've always thought about it as a book about love, like a really non-romantic love story.
Sure.
Yeah.
A question that you ask in the book: what occupies your imagination?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, Jemimah, what occupies your imagination?
So currently, I am thinking about parallel worlds. I've been
Say
reading
more.
a lot of. Okay, great. I've been reading a lot of fantasy.
That's your favorite phrase. Say
That's my
more.
favorite phrase. I know. I love talking. I have this T-shirt that's like certified yapper.
Tell me.
Yeah.
Why
so
is this in your imagination?
Because I was thinking about like the different forms of narrative that we experience, and one that is really popular that we don't see as much in like prose literature, but I see a lot in Japanese animation or in those like that traditional storytelling, like webcomics, is this idea of going into a different world, like the isekai narrative. And so I was thinking like about that. It's type of portal fantasy. And then I started asking all of these stories that we have of like dreaming of alternate lives, dreaming of and having the opportunity to realize that they tend to come at quite a young age, right? Think about Narnia. What
I
are
was
they?
just gonna say Narnia. Yeah.
Literal children.
Yeah.
And earlier in our conversation, I think this is an expansion of what you asked me earlier about what I was thinking about with regards to freedom. I do think at the cost of freedom, what if we had that parallel world offered to us at different stages in our lives? And I don't know that I could walk away from my life right now. I was talking to my editor about this because we were talking about books we've read recently. I've read Samantha Harvey's Orbital on the plane right here. And I thought it was amazing and interesting for me specifically because when I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. And and I'm not sciencey, so that obviously never happened. She was like, why do you want to be an astronaut? And I was like, I don't know. I really like the idea of being alone for an extended period of time and being able to see the Earth.
You would never be able to do that. There's no one to talk to.
I would talk to myself. Like I'm literally never bored. Okay, so I don't know if you can tell I have ADHD. There are like 8 conversations going on in my head at any time. And just this idea of being able to behold the world in like that splendor from away instead of being on it, I think was very interesting to me as a child. And anyway, that never happened. But
spoiler alert,
that never happened. But there is no age limit to being an astronaut, as we have recently found out. My editor was like, it's not too late. You could still be an astronaut. And I was like, I cannot. It's too late for me because I have deliberately and intentionally tethered my life to souls here. I cannot leave this life. I love the people in it too much. And so I have chosen my chains and they are on this earth. So I'm not going to the moon. Who knows? Moon.
Never say never.
Never say never, but honestly, who knows what's on the moon? It's not going to be me who discovers it. When thinking about what occupies my imagination, like recently a lot of what I was thinking about is, it's not just what lives are out there for us, but what are the costs of pursuing those lives, which is an extension of the question I pursue in this book, honestly. So that is something I've been thinking a lot about. I've been trying very deliberately to move my imagination away from this earth or like this reality we live in because it's been terrible. It's been like truly awful.
So fair. Yeah.
And so I'm thinking a lot about that. I was also thinking a lot recently and unwillingly about grief. I guess like part of the cost of love is like loss. And not intentionally, I don't intentionally sit around imagining like what it would be like to lose people. But I have thought a lot in recent years about the nature of grief and the way it manifests, our relationship with non-speaking beings. So let's just sample what's going on in this funhouse.
In our last few minutes together, The Original Daughter is an Aardvark book club pick. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy.
I have a question from our friends at Aardvark Book Club that they wanted me to ask you. So here it is. Jen and Erin's sisterly dynamics are shaped by the fact that Jen is older, with Erin spending much of her life looking up to her until this abruptly shifts. Was there ever a draft where Erin was the older sister?
No, but there was a draft where Erin was a brother.
What?
That was crazy behavior. I scrapped that draft real quick. But that was like a whole year.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
A whole year of a brother.
Yeah, well, I wasn't writing full time back then, so it was a big part.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating. Had it been a sister and then briefly you were like, wait, let me see if it works as a brother. And then you were like, no, JK. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good inside scoop.
I know. I think it's so crazy right now when I think back on it. But yeah.
Well, thanks, Aardvark Book Club, for the question.
Oh, thank you.
And everyone can go to aardvarkbookclub.com and use the code GAYSREADING and get a book for $4. So there you go.
Woohoo! Thank you so much for having me. This is so fun. I love yapping about the book.
Yap about the book. Everyone go get your copy of The Original Daughter. It's so beautiful.
Thank
it's
you.
out now wherever you get your books. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Just gay weird time.
I have never had a fashion icon on the show, and the only thing that was acceptable for me to wear is my husband's caftan.
I love it.
I was like, this is the most absurd thing in my home. There's nothing else I could wear. I was like, I'm either naked or wearing this.
Either is fine. Either is fine, depending on your audience, right?
Perfect. Look at you. You have your racks set up behind you, looking very profesh, very fabulous.
No, this is our showroom. This is where all the magic, the fittings, everything happens. So I was planning to do it at my home. Then I was like, I have to be at work. You know, who has the
What?
luxury of being at home and doing a podcast when you have to work?
In the middle of the day.
Exactly.
Right.
Listen, I'm a sucker for romance novels, and I'm like a big Jane Austen fan.
Oh my
Like, I've
God.
watched every version of like Pride and Prejudice. So for me, I am a sap. I cry at every romantic gestures. And
You talk about loving romance, Jane Austen. Prabal, what are you reading?
right now, I just finished Hernan Diaz's book Trust, which I
Yeah.
really love. Have you read it? No.
No, it's sitting on my shelf. I've heard
It
wonderful
is. It
things.
is one of the. I thought it was brilliantly written, and I loved that book. And I
Yeah.
finished that, and I picked up this book called Rejection. Have you read it?
I did.
So I'm like almost towards the end of it. It started with me going like, ha ha ha, like being like, oh my god, like what, like to I'm like, whoa, like.
Yeah.
And so I've been like telling a few of my friends who've read it and asking them like, should I finish or is this going to be heavy? Like, is it, like, I don't know where it's going, in a sense. It's brilliantly written. It's so
Yes.
crazy. It's
Yes.
so, yeah, but it's also telling of our times, it's also that. And it's funny thing, what happened was like, a couple of weeks ago, I was holding the book and I was it happened twice to me. I was both at different restaurants. I was carrying that book and I was walking, and you know how in New York nobody says really like hi, hello.
Right. No.
Immediately, someone across the table like hi, and I said hi and said, "Oh my God, have you finished that book?" Okay, everyone and then the other person was like, another was like, "Oh, have you read the book? What did you think?" And it's almost like, let's say you wear a T-shirt with and somebody loves, like, let's say Britney, and they're like, oh my God, I love you. That
Uh-huh.
it was like the book had, and I was like, you know what? I'll take a connection that happens through literature rather than anything else.
Yes. Oh, I
So
love that.
yeah, so I mean, New Yorkers who are notorious, and including myself, notoriously, let's say, reserved and stoic and unfriendly, were really reaching out because there was a connection. So it really touched a nerve. So, what do you think? Should I finish it or not?
Well, here's what I will say. The first half of the book I loved. I laughed. It
Same.
spoke to me. And
Yeah,
the second
same.
half of the book, I was like, what the hell am I reading?
Yeah. So it's been that from me too. Like
Yeah.
the first half, there were like moments of it, like I know, or I could see we all have that, glimpses of it.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, it's getting to this, and I'm just like, whoa, like I'm reading it, I'm like, wait a second, what the?
Uh-huh. That's so funny. And part of why I do this guest gay reader series is because, someone like you, like, yes, you have a book coming out,
Yeah.
but I'm sure on a regular basis you are not certainly publicly talking about books that you're reading. And for you to be you're reading Rejection, you're reading Trust. These are books that are like meaty and in the world, and you have people coming up to you asking you about what they see in your hands. Like, books really bring people together, and I find that so cool.
Yeah, it's so funny because I've always believed that books have a way of finding you. And also when what you read and especially what you hold, there might be books that you read and you keep it at home, but what you carry with you,
Yeah.
right? What you carry, it's also, I may be crazy, but I feel like it's a way of revealing who you are, right? So it's very intimate and personal what you read and especially you hold on to, because as unexpected as it was, it opens up dialogues from different kind of people, right?
Yeah.
And so are people judging? Are people, do you know what I mean? It's when you're a relatively, like, let's say, public persona, like, personality, even your private moment is a public private moment, right? Like, what you put on Instagram and everything. But then when you, let's say, one of my favorite restaurants in New York City is this Japanese restaurant called Omen. That's where I met this woman, and I went with my book and everything. And I was actually giving my memoir to a friend of mine who's a musician, and I had rejection also. So that's when she was like, "Oh, what are you reading? Rejection? Oh my God!" What? She happened to be a publisher also,
Oh,
and so we started chatting, and then she said, "What's the other book you're holding?" I kid you not. I'm not someone necessarily shy, but I was like so I was like, oh my, it's a book, and I said, she like, let me see, and then then I said, oh, it's my memoir, and she's like, oh my God, I could not even bring myself to say it out because it was just like, I'm not, I'm not prepared for it because I don't live in your world, so I don't know, I just know my books have been my friends, and so many ways, have saved me in so many situations, So yeah, it's like your best friend that nobody knows,
Yes. Well, I say this on every episode. I'm a late in life reader. I didn't really start reading until 5 or 6 years ago. And I feel the same way. And I mention books to people, and it opens up a conversation, and it changes so many things, and it really brings people together. And I can only imagine, the difference between holding your book at a restaurant and someone asking you about it versus it's in the store, someone's buying it, you're removed from it, you've put it out into the world, and it's different.
And and the hope is the romantic in me, and because I discover books, and so the romantic in me wants people to find this book over the period of time, and really hopefully it touches them, or it kind of resonates with them. But the world we live in, there's it comes with the whole purpose of no longer do we live in a world where people aren't distracted. So you almost have to bring forward, hey, this is what I've done. Pay attention to. Had I written fiction, it might have been easier for me.
Yeah,
but it's a memoir, so a lot of it's really personal, and it's almost like you're really completely naked in front of people.
Yeah.
And so it's been really ups and downs, emotionally.
I can only imagine. I mean, I want to hear how you fell in love with Jane Austen, but we're on the journey. Let's talk about your book. Walk Like a Girl is out now. Even the title is vulnerable. Obviously, it is your memoir. Is there what is the heart of the story, would you say?
Walk Like a Girl, I would say, is it's a part memoir, part manifesto, but mostly a love letter to people who've always felt like they've been seen, heard, marginalized, people who've felt like they often get their not enough or too much, people who feel like their existence somehow are made to feel like it doesn't matter. It's for them. It's a story for them. Walk Like a Girl is to walk through life with courage and resilience and softness and defiance and grace. And it's this wonderful roadmap back to yourself, And I would say that to me is what Walk Like a Girl is. And Walk Like a Girl is also this, over the period of time, through my own life, realized that feminine-leaning ideas, feminine-leaning people are the ultimate saviors for the mankind and for people, for humanity. I've realized that. And when I say about feminine-leaning ideas and people, it's not necessarily gender. It's this idea of empathy, thoughtfulness. It's about caring about each other, the environment, accountability, everything that we talk about. Because for the longest period of time, we've been conditioned to think that success has one kind of narrow definition, which is you have to have a house in here, you have to house this, again, you have to be like this. It's very heteronormative idea of adhering to that idea of masculinity, to me, which almost feels like a caricature. I wanted to share the story of mine that because of my leaning towards my feminine side and matriarchy and celebration of it, I could save myself. Because I don't want to be a teacher, I just want to share. And part of it was trauma, things that you go through, it never leaves you.
Yeah.
You find better tools to deal with it, sharing the story, talking to you, talking to my therapist, talking to my friends. But the pain is pain, and it really shook my core, and it really, it really made me really rethink about what was important for me, the values, and then also come to terms with the thing that, because if when you live in New York, when you're an entrepreneur and when you're like someone who's like constantly doing things and achieving things, wanting to achieve things, what you do is you set aside, all right, I'm going to give myself an hour to feel sorry and then move on. Like, and that's the thing that you hear. Pain doesn't work like that.
Right.
Pain. Like, I could be sitting in somewhere and something triggers, like, you all of a sudden you're like thinking about whether it's your father or whether it's your lost love or things that, brings back. And then you just have better tools to deal with it. I was always scared of being unhealed, but now in unhealing, I've found myself. In unhealing, I've found that as much as success and joy is part of me, so is my struggles, different sides of the same coin. And yeah.
I think about things like that as a snowball, right? Like those things don't go away. They're just deeper inside of us, right? And we grow, and maybe there will be something that triggers those feelings, and maybe it'll be a sense memory. You'll smell something, or you'll see someone who reminds you of someone from your childhood, right? Who knows how that will sneak up on you? Thank you for sharing all of that. I think it's something that we don't always think about when someone's...
Yeah, because I also don't want to... this is one of the reasons that, initially I was going to be like, all this, press stuff. I was going to be like this, how the usual stuff. But, a couple of months ago, there was this, designers, my peers also, and some, new designers. Everyone keeps on saying to me, well, you make it seem so joyful and easy. And
make the work seem joyful and easy, or make the book seem joyful and easy.
No, make me what
just
I do
in general. Yeah,
what I do, my being, it seems like. And I was just like, while that is true, and my life from the outside looks bright and bold and exciting, but the joy is hard earned.
And takes work.
Yeah, it takes work, and I kind of didn't want to. What I realized, what I put on the Instagram and everything, I was just like, wait a second. Have I been perpetuating this idea of this, toxic positivity, constantly happy, constantly fabulous? I'm just like, wait a second. I need people to understand that nothing comes to anyone that easy. Especially something that something that you feel it's can move the needle for you and for someone else. It takes work, and so I just didn't want people to think just because I don't talk too much about my past and my pain. This is the first time I'm talking about it, just so that you know. And doesn't mean I've had it easy. That's what,
Yeah, listen, I fully understand that. And I'm someone who makes a choice I choose to be happy. I choose to be joyful. I choose to be glass half full.
Yeah.
And that doesn't come easily because all of the bad things are still there.
Exactly.
And it's not ignoring them. It's choosing to focus on other things.
Yeah.
And then navigate it in a way that
absolutely
works. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what you're just saying is so right. It's it's not that your challenges are not there. It's just it's the same thing for me too. It says that I want you to know the book is about this. I want you to know what I've been through. And it's no that different from someone else. So many of us, so many queer folks of color, just queer folks. What I want people to understand is, despite of all those challenges, you can still choose joy.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be hard. Sometimes it cannot be achievable for different people and everything. But I chose that. Doesn't mean it's going to work for you, but it is just that, and not denying the challenges in a world that constantly only interested in celebrating success.
Something that I've been asking everyone in a time to amplify our loved ones and our friends and people that mean so much to us. If you were to die tomorrow, who would you choose to delete your search history on your computer? Who do we trust with our life and our secrets?
Well, actually, I have a lot of friends. And okay, I would say I'll start with my brother and my sister, who are my best friends. My sister, just so that my sister lives in Kathmandu. My brother lives in Mumbai. He's a film director. My sister's a writer.
Oh
and
my
then
God.
So
what a family.
100%. They are I always say, if somebody asks me to jump from 50th floor, and if they say my brother and my sister are holding the thing, I'll do it. You know, they're my best friends, and they are the reasons why, like, you know, they're my moral compass. They're my, like, you know, kind of like my standard of like humanity. And then I have like really good friends. I'm so fortunate, honestly. Like, and thank you for asking that, because I've never thought about this. Thank you for asking, because it made me just realize how abundant my life is. I just realized that. I didn't even realize it till, because I sometimes, you know, like, you're like, oh, friends, this and that. I don't want to bother. Like, you think, I'm like, I have actually, I have like more than, oh my God, I have more than 10 friends
Wow.
that I can, like,
That you can rely
oh
on
my
for something
God,
so
thank you.
important
Honestly,
like that.
like, oh my God, thank you so much for asking this, because I didn't even, oh my God, like, I'm gonna cry, because I didn't even realize, like, you know, I didn't realize that my life was so full. Like, so, because not because of everything that outside accolades or anything like that, or the book, it's just because I'm like so loved by my friends, you know, and I have that, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful, and I'm so grateful to you. I'm honest to God, like, I'm glad you asked me
Oh.
this. I never thought. I'm jumping, like, you know, oh my God. Thank you. Thank
Of
you.
course, no. Listen, it was something that was asked on a TV show, and it had me thinking about the people in my life. And you know, it's not asking someone to give you a ride to the airport, right? Like that could be tedious or inconvenient for someone. But when you really need someone, you know, deleting your search history, I don't want people to know all those secrets. Who am I going to trust with that? To have a moment to pause and think about those people in your life, I always like a good reason for that.
Wow. That is a really good question, you know,
Thank you.
because I was honestly, when I was like, you know, started our conversation, I didn't know where it was going to go, but like, and I mean, like, I knew we would have this conversation, but I didn't, it just made me like, for more like, you made me internalize, like, you know, like, as I said, like, how abundant my life is and how many things, my God. You know,
Well,
sometimes this is the thing about living in this capitalist world sometimes, like, you know, you are like so conditioned and accustomed to, you know, associating yourself with the idea of success that is based on their idea.
yeah.
You know, like, you know, this all big, shiny, better, and I'd been in my own way a victim of that, conditioned in that. You know, like being like, you're like, oh, have I done enough? Have I done enough? Have I done enough? Have I done it? Constantly feeling like that. And that question really made me realize, if nothing else, I'm grateful that the friends that I chose are solid ones. Solid ones.
I love that. Well, thank you for going through that journey with, and shout out to your brother and sister. My two sisters, I'm very close with them too, and I think
There's nothing better than that.
they would be high on my list. Yeah.
There's nothing. I love them so much because they're such good people.
Yeah.
Such good people. People with insane integrity. You know, so
I mean, certainly one of my sisters they'd read everything first and then delete it because she's nosy. But she would still do it. She would read it first, but she would still do it. Prabal, this has been so fun.
Yeah.
I could talk to you all day. I do really want to hear how this Jane Austen thing came to be. I love that you are such a reader.
I'm really enjoying this conversation. So let's just go on till we get to a place where we feel like.
Yeah. And this is just the beginning of the conversation. Go check out the rest on the Gaze Reading Substack. It is such a delight to chat with Prabal. Thank you so much. Also, thank you to Jemimah Wei. Make sure to check out The Original Daughter and Walk Like a Girl. Both are out now. Original Daughter you can get on Aardvark Book Club using the code GAZEREADING at checkout for only $4. All right, everyone. Those are all the things. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.